What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are continuing this week's mock draft with trades with rounds 2 and 3, just like the NFL draft. It is day 2. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to go check out round number 1. We are going to be doing a quick little recap right here, but it's a little bit more fun to see it live, so feel free to go check that out. That video is doing really well. I love the support that we are getting on that. So thank you. We are on our way to 10K. We literally just last night breached 8,800, which is incredible. This has been one of the best months on record, and it's all thanks to you. Below my face is my board. It is developing. There is a potential player in the top 10 that I did not have even listed, didn't even think he would be remotely there, but he's there. But below that is going to be great ways to connect more with the community, as well as take advantage of our 2 sponsors. So feel free to go pop over there, because then you get to reward yourself. Well, I get to reward myself. And that's what we're going to do right now. Let's get back into this, starting out with some of the key trades. I know y'all can read. So, I mean, if y'all can't read, sorry. That's why we have an audio version of this, or you can just watch the first video with audio. But for those of y'all who can read, you can read the rest of these. But big trade up here at number 2. I got a lot of really good draft capital for Arizona, but also New York is a team that I do believe has the draft capital to move up. I had a quick trade up here with the Chargers as well. We will continue to re-reference this just so we are all on the same page, i.e. I'm just kind of blaming y'all so that I can remain on the same page. As you could tell, I am wearing my Louis Vuitton eye bags today, and that is going to be great. So we also had a trade up here with Kansas City in order to select Emeka Egbuka. There are some other positions I think that KC could totally go after. I just wanted to be able to test out a new theory. We also had a trade up here with the Clemson Tigers. Just kidding. Why would Clemson be trading up? Seattle Seahawks traded down with the Detroit Lions so they could snag Nate Wiggins, get their selection on the remaining defensive backs. I do think that the Texans are a very hot spot very much a hot spot for a top tier corner. But of course, other trades that did occur, we actually had a quick trade up in the final 2 picks. We had Washington jump Philadelphia to get an edge rusher. And then we also had the Cardinals making a very minute jump because the Eagles were just probably trying to get some extra draft capital by moving back and selecting an interior defensive lineman. Hence why I said they dominated, because when you end up getting Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jared Verse, and Chris Jenkins, that is kind of cooking. So let's get right into this with the 33rd overall selection. The Carolina Panthers make their debut. And for me, I actually watched more Xavier Legette last night because there was more All-22 that dropped on him. And he is dynamic. He is really awesome. Genuinely one of those guys when you hear, oh, they hit 22.4 miles per hour. A lot of times when you actually watch them, they don't play consistently at that speed. Xavier Legette takes the top off of the defense. I would not be surprised if I closed my eyes, or if I didn't know his statistics and you told me he was 190 pounds. He is 230 and can run like that. So definitely the front runner for this selection. Bryce Young needs weapons, but y'all also need offensive line. And part of me kind of wants to switch things up and go Jordan Morgan and end up kicking Ike Ekwonu to guard, because I just don't know, based on his losses, whether he can actually hold up at tackle for the long run. I know y'all have been talking about it a lot, and I do think that's a very smart move. You could go Kingsley here, but Kingsley has had his own relative issues with being a pure left tackle. And for me, I'd rather go after someone who's a little bit more steady Eddie. I did have some concerns with Icky coming into the draft with him potentially whiffing on some blocks, but Jordan Morgan is kind of the exact opposite. Amarius Mims is returning in this. Got to clarify that from the get-go. Jordan Morgan's going to be my unique selection for this team. I think you need wide receiver. Absolutely. This is a very good class, luckily, for that. So with our next pick, we will most likely be intriguing that option. But, when you can get one of the better offensive linemen at this point, this is not a very good offensive tackle class. It's a good guard class, but you take what you can get. Philadelphia Eagles, this is one that I'm going to run to the podium. So Kelsey's going to be gone. And we obviously have our replacement in Jurgens. But Lane Johnson's already 33, and his best friend on the team is Kelsey. And he's already contemplated retirement a little bit. There were those rumors a year or two ago saying that, hey, I'm thinking about it. And he has not been 100% healthy. This team always drafts a year before they need to, and it's always in the second round as well. When you can get a swing tackle like Kingsley Suamataia, who I believe is a better right tackle anyways, this is the exact value you go for it. I would not select Tyler Guyton at this point, and I would not go and select Blake Fisher at this point. But if Kingsley's on the board, I think that is the route that, one, Howie has been shown willing to go, but two, it's the right route to go. So Kingsley Suamataia will be the selection. So the Eagles ended up acquiring more draft capital and still ended up with their guy. For the Patriots, we have the we've already gone Drake Maye. So that's good. Got that down. That's kind of a big one. Now it's offensive tackle and wide receiver. Xavier Legette and AD Mitchell are going to be really hard to pass on. And I mean really hard to pass on. The question is, do you believe in Patrick Paul? Do you think Troy Fautanu can be a tackle? I'm up in the air on that. Therefore, I would not take the risk because he's not going to upgrade the offensive line if he can't be a tackle. It's really down to Kuron and Tyler Guyton. And, you know, Kuron's coming off of that quad injury. I think he is roughly worth a late second, which, you know, it is within striking range, but I'd spend money like going back to the well and, you know, essentially revamping my tackles through free agency again, because just you don't want to reach. Xavier Legette's different. This guy offers the size and the deep threat ability that I know Drake Maye to love, and he's a really good jump ball catch specialist. So that's awesome. Like, I got to see him do some really good contested catches against some very aggressive corners. Now, areas Xavier can improve in, I think that he needs to run the best route, not just the route he's assigned. Sometimes I do see him, like, he does adjust his route to sit in a soft spot, but he does it after his initial route is essentially nullified by good coverage. So for me, I think that's an easy area to basically be like, hey, if you're sitting, if you feel like you're in a really good soft spot, sit down. Drake will get you the ball. And I think naturally it's going to be very, very effective. Xavier also needs to get a little bit better with manipulating the defender on coverage, i.e. making them think he's going to run a seam when he's going to run a slant. Stuff like that. He has shown the ability to do that, which is great. There was one particular out route that I really loved where I think it might have been Jason Marshall, who's in outside coverage. Obviously, when he's outside shade coverage and you're going outside, you need to do something to get back into proper positioning. He didn't get the proper separation, but what I love is how he did a swim move, essentially. It's what I loved about Jahan Dotson coming out. But he essentially did a swim move in order to get in front. He wasn't targeted that play. And that's why you need to watch all 22, because you can watch the whole rep, and it doesn't matter when he's targeted. But he was able to get proper positioning. I love seeing the foundation is rock solid. I love seeing it. And Xavier Legette has that. He still needs a little bit to work on, but for me, I'd be happy taking him probably in this range right here. And to have him here at 35, definitely going to be worth it. So at pick number 36 for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, I think y'all have seen now who is in my top 10, who is not there. I absolutely fell in love with one of the corners last night. And, you know, we'll leave it there. So at this point, we're still continuing with the corners. I have my number 20 player in the draft still sitting there on the board. So Denzel Burke, you are my guy. Denzel Burke out of the Ohio State University. He is just super dynamic, underappreciated. Again, don't look at PFF's rankings and think that's like the best rankings on planet Earth. Like, no disrespect to Trevor Sikkema. He knows what the hell he's doing. But again, it is essentially one person's rankings versus another person's rankings. This isn't a consensus board of Mike Renner, you know, all these guys. Which again, this does reflect some favoritism, which is what my board does too, and that is perfectly fine. But for those of y'all who are saying, oh, you picked the number 50th player when we had number 33 available. I mean, I would just say look at my board, because that shows what my thought process is. It's kind of the whole entire reason why I put it in here. Also, then I don't have to make big board videos for you guys to actually know what I'm thinking. Therefore, you can always, like, transparency is my thing. But regardless, Denzel Burke, he's been one of my top corners since the beginning. I love the way he finished last year, even though it was a down year for him. And then he's continued to ascend during this year. Overall, really talented corner, somebody who I have a lot of respect for. At pick number 37 for Washington, we already moved up and selected an edge rusher. We already have a tackle. Luckily, that edge rusher that we got in JT Tuimoloau was Olu-Fashanu kind of Achilles heel. So, we don't even have to face the guy who gave our tackle the most problems pretty much out of anybody, which is great. So now we have a top tier edge rusher. We have a top tier tackle. So the question is, do we want to go and address right tackle with a developmental guy like Tyler Guyton, who technically didn't even start his last game? I am genuinely confused on that. And this is like the awkward time where we are seeing a lot of players decide to return. So like deep down, I am looking. So I'm just ending up hoping that nobody returns while doing this video. I was checking Twitter while talking to y'all. So far, there is only Braylon Allen as well as Jeremiah Trotter who have officially said, I'm coming out, which is weird. Those are two of the players I actually thought might have returned. Anyways, just to clarify, if something does happen while I'm recording this video, I'm sorry, but shit happens. I'm thinking Tyler Guyton's the best route to go. There's just not good enough value at the other positions, and this is a pretty hot commodity. Offensive tackles, as y'all know, are not the easiest to come by, and Tyler Guyton does have a ton of upside. So for me, he would still be a one-year project, but I think the fact that you can, sit and develop him, he could probably be better than the one that you already have right now. I think Wiley's your right tackle, probably going to be better than him, but this guy does have a ton of potential to be a legitimate starting tackle. He just needs a little bit of polishing, and that could happen in an offseason. But ultimately, this is not a very good tackle class. You have to push these guys who are probably worth a late second, early third up the board, and that's not a bad thing. You have a huge need, and now you have Olu-Fashanu and Tyler Guyton to be your tackles of the future. That also gives you 4 to 5 years of cheap contracts at a very expensive position. I picked number 38 for the Arizona Cardinals. So we've already moved up. We got 3 studs on defense. Now, looking at other positions, I might want to trade back and get y'all a little bit more. Deep down, I love Johnny Wilson. I was actually watching the corner class last night with Nate Wiggins. And, Nate Wiggins, he's better than what I used to give him credit for. So there you go, Clemson fans who are losing your mind over me. But he's definitely worse than the consensus. Like he actually ended up staying roughly around the same spot on the board as I thought, but I just had to call it out for what it is. So we already have a boundary corner. We now have Garrett Williams and Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think at this point you could look. If Tyler Guyton were on the board, I would look to develop that part of the team. I'd be in the mood to actually go after a pass rushing defensive interior because Chris Jenkins doesn't really offer that much in terms of the overall, he's not an overall, essentially, addition to the team in every single down. Leonard Taylor technically isn't either, but Leonard Taylor does bring a ton of upside. Same thing with Rook Arorojo. The fact is we ended up getting the more pure edge rusher, and Rook can actually play a little bit more of a 5-tech, 3-tech. He could even play some nose reps, but I wouldn't do that. That's why you have Chris Jenkins now. Rook is a guy who I honestly want to move back and still select. So we're going to continue getting picks for this team. They do need help. They do. But at the same time, just the value's not adding up, and I'm seeing some players I really want to get off the board. Cam Kinchens is one of them. Tyler Nubin is another. I'm seeing Green Bay here, and I know Rudy Ford's doing good. I'm forgetting the other name of your rookie safety, but ultimately, I don't think they're elite starter quality over the safeties that are on the board. Now, other players who could get mentioned in here for the quarterbacks, I just don't really think any of them because I'm having Shadur return, another guy who's returning. And Quinn Ewers most likely will return. Those guys are not worth it at the moment. But I'm looking at Troy Franklin here and Johnny Wilson. Totally 2 underappreciated wide receivers. Johnny has his drop issues, but he also makes the most acrobatic, weird catches that you'll ever see. And Troy is just dominant. Genuinely one of the better wide receivers in the game. Now, we could end up just taking him with the Buccaneers and, pairing him back up with Bo Nix. But I want to see if there's maybe another team that would be in the mood for a Troy Franklin at this part of the draft. And, I could totally see a team like the Tennessee Titans getting all down to be able to draft a wide receiver of Troy Franklin's caliber. They ended up selecting Talise Fuaga in the first round, too. So there is a need for it. The Bills have already addressed wide receiver. I feel like all those other teams are out of striking range. For the Cardinals in this spot, you have to be caught. You have to have a caution, where you're going to be going with this team, because if you move back and get out of range for someone like Leonard Taylor, because there are teams here that probably would love to be able to draft Leonard Taylor. Some of them in your own division, by the way. The Rams are a very sneaky team for it. You don't want to miss out. And I don't want to miss out. So we're going to go Leonard Taylor here. The ceiling is there. I've seen some flashes of him. He didn't look himself this year, which is the whole entire reason he's available at pick number 38. But, when you think about it, Leonard Taylor, when at his best, is better than maybe not Jazon Newton, but almost every single defensive interior in the class. And now he doesn't have to be the focal point of the defensive interior, because that's Chris Jenkins' job. So now you're getting two of the best for a very needy defense. Now, again, Troy Franklin, I do believe, could be someone you bring in and end up having a lot of success with. Because I do think HAILMARY will have some say, saying, hey, I want more weapons. But for the meantime, I feel like HAILMARY would be pretty happy not having to bail out his defense all the time. At pick number 39, I know there's better positions to target. But I think we need to complete the lore, because we traded back and we ended up selecting Bo Nix in the first round with Tampa. With Tampa, we're going to select Troy Franklin. Wide receiver is not the youngest core in the world. You want to have somebody with Trey Palmer. And Troy Franklin and Trey Palmer would be a very, very nice duo. Both are going to be speedy separators, but Troy Franklin, I think, is a little bit more nuanced as a route runner. He's essentially going to be your Chris Godwin replacement for the long run. You still will need your future Mike Evans replacement, but I think Mike Evans will end up retiring a Buccaneer. And Bo Nix has instant chemistry. He dominates with Troy Franklin. It's the route to go. For the Packers, I like to go this route usually. First off, they have ended up drafting Jazon Johnny Newton, because defensive interior, you have two that are useful. Devontae Wyatt, who's improving. I don't even know if we could call him fully useful yet. And then Kenny Clark, who's a beast. Y'all do need some help there on the defensive interior and finish it off, because there's not just two defensive interiors that play a game. Jazon Johnny Newton, that guy's much different than Devontae Wyatt. He's much better, in my opinion. So, looking at the other options, safety, again, I already talked about it. You have two good young safeties. That does not mean that they are elite starter quality. In the NFL, especially a passing NFL, you need to make sure that you have elite starting safeties, because that is how you don't get freaking toasted by Marvin Harrison Jr. and not Jordan Jefferson, but Justin Jefferson, the Jets himself. The offensive tackle class is another one you would at least want to think about. Karan Amajaje is somebody who I really, really like. And the fact is, he will be ready for the year. And I think he is worth roughly around this value. But, it's a quad injury that's put him out for the rest of the year. He won't be able to perform against other talent that is near him in the Senior Bowl. So, unfortunately, I don't think he'll be drafted in this range. Patrick Paul will be at the Senior Bowl. Could end up massively rising his stock to where this would be a fairly solid selection, or it could end up taking his stock. I'm not sold on Patrick Paul. I know a lot of other people who aren't. I think the statistics don't line up. I think Javon Foster is another key option that you can go after, but ultimately the value of Tyler Nubin and Cam Kinchens is just too good. And I'm going to go Tyler Nubin here, because I genuinely appreciate what he can do in all weather. And he's just super consistent. I don't really see many games where I can, point at a rep that Tyler Nubin plays and says, that's not good enough. So he's become my safety number one as well. I'm glad to see him ascend the way he has. At pick number 41 for the Los Angeles Chargers, again, Amarius Mims is returning. He would have been the number 13 pick. We ended up getting Brock Bowers in a minute trade up. I think this is a good time that we could try to trade back, because we did end up losing a third-round selection. We still got Johnny Wilson on the board, who's going to be a massive get for a team that's looking for a big possession receiver who has a really good blocking resume too. I mean, hell, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I'd be at least open to it. Not going to do it with the Philadelphia Eagles because I don't feel like that's the route that they would like to go. I think they want to replace Quez, and that's kind of the exact opposite of Quez. I'm looking at New York here. I do feel like they should be at least in the mood to contemplate moving up once again, but we've already given up so much draft capital with them. Doesn't really feel like a very smart thing to do. I do think the Texans, however, the corner class is something that I also want to look at for them. I think it would be a wise move to move up because there are teams that could be in the mood for a corner. I'm looking at two of them right here in the Raiders as well as the Titans. And you have essentially three corners that are worth taking. You got Josh Newton, TJ Tampa, and then who is not listed, of course, because PFF hasn't seen him yet, but Dwight McLaughlin out of Arkansas, who is actually my number 21 player. So, I mean, to be fair, actually, the Chargers need him. The Chargers need a corner. So, RIP. But we're going to go TJ Tampa for the Chargers. Totally forgot about the fact that they needed a corner too. So now you got Brock Bowers and TJ Tampa. TJ Tampa is super reliable. Great player. For me, I think I have him above every other corner that is listed. And you also got Quinion Mitchell, apart from Dwight McLaughlin, but I don't think Dwight is going to be picked as highly as TJ Tampa. But looking at the Tennessee Titans, I think it comes down to AD Mitchell and Josh Newton here. Actually, Dwight McLaughlin too. I really love Dwight McLaughlin. He is a stud. I'm going to go Dwight McLaughlin for y'all. Max Melton's going to be the placeholder. Actually, Max Melton might have been a guy who I drafted, so RIP to that future, but at the same time, we'll find somebody else. But Dwight McLaughlin, cornerback out of Arkansas, number 21 player in the class. You need a boundary corner. I think wide receiver is more plentiful than DB down the line, and it's just the right way to go. At pick number 43 for the Las Vegas Raiders, I really would hope that that PFF takes out Dante Corleone because I have a very bad tendency to randomly slip up and have a moment of low IQ and randomly select a player that has returned to school. This is not going to be one of those videos. So I think defensive interior is a really good route to target. I'd rather get someone of size, and that's probably going to be McKinley Jackson, and this is way too early for him. He's 325 pounds. The rest of these guys do not occupy they don't occupy the run lanes the proper way. I love Rukaroro, someone who I think is going to be a massive addition to a lot of teams. But for me at this point, I think just addressing a boundary defensive back, especially after I'm pretty sure Marcus Peters got even waived, it's the right thing to do. Josh Newton, going back to TCU, grabbing another TCU defensive back is going to be the right way to go. Pair him up with Jayden Daniels, who you selected in the first. And pick number 44 for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if you end up bringing on Shaq Leonard. But at this point, I think the right move, is going to be going after an edge rusher, a wide receiver, or a linebacker. And looking at the edge rushers on the board, Chris Braswell could be a great get. Again, the question is, do we want to add in more? Is Hassan going to be gone? Hassan most likely might want to return because he's not having the best career year for a massive contract. He might just want to say, I want to come back for one more. And that makes me believe that the right route to go for this team would be to go after a linebacker. And, there's Jeremiah Trotter came out. The more I watch him, I still have very, very similar issues. It looks like he got his processor back in order, which is a big plus. But he's small, he's short, and he's not uber athletic. He's pretty much at the right place at the right time, but the NFL, that right time is a lot less than what it is in college. For me, I'm looking at Junior Colson here out of Michigan, and there's only one or two really legitimate mics. I'm pretty sure, you got Danny Stutzman, who honestly might return, but you pretty much got Peyton Wilson with injury issues. Don't really think with the unfortunately, not the ascension of Nakobe Dean with his injuries. I don't think that we're going to go for an injury-prone guy. Danny Stutzman needs way too much work. Junior Colson, him and his buddy there, I'm forgetting his name, but those two linebackers in Michigan are incredible. I'm going to opt for it. I think it's the one final massive hole on this team is getting a true Mike linebacker. At 6'3", 247 pounds, he fits a very similar mold to Zach Cunningham. And he's just a really talented linebacker that can cover in man-to-man coverage very, very well, which is going to be key. At pick number 45, we also have Cam Kitchens still on the board, but we have the Green Bay Packers here. I think running back's the way that y'all will like to go. And I kind of want to get Thunder and Lightning for this team in this draft. So we're going to start out with the Lightning with Trey Benson, who ended off his season with a hell of a good game. Yes, I know they still have other games to play, but the regular season, Trey Benson is and should be the number one running back in the class. Should probably be going in this round 2 range. I have him at 34 on my board, so it is the proper value. At pick number 46 for the Los Angeles Rams, I'd be debating going Cam Kitchens at this point. We ended up targeting Cooper DeJean in the first, though, so RIP that idea. And I'm probably going to trade out with the Rams. I mean, looking at it, you got Chris Braswell here, though, which is incredible value on the edge. I think that and Jonah Ellis are going to be the right way to go. Princey Umamulan, really good mention here. I personally love what they have in Clemson Xavier Thomas, but you could look at offensive line as well. You could go Troy Fautanu here and draft another offensive lineman. But for me, I'm going to draft Chris Braswell, who on 18 attempts got 6 pressures this past week. I picked number 47 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to look primarily at Jatavian Sanders here. Looking at the rest of the tackles that are available, you could try Troy Fautanu out and see where he ends up. I don't think that'd be a bad move for the franchise to just, see if he can end up sticking at tackle. But looking at Jatavian Sanders, he's the pretty much final puzzle piece on the offense. Having him and T. Higgins, I know it's that same Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase meme, but you don't reach for offensive linemen who might not even start. And Jatavian Sanders will most likely start. He fits that Irv Smith profile. At pick number 48, we got the Buffalo Bills, and somehow, someway, Cam Kitchens is here. I'm taking him. Even if I took a safety in the first, I'd still be taking him here. The value is incredible. He's an elite level safety. Probably should return, but Tyler Van Dyke's in the transfer portal. I don't know if he does, because I thought maybe if Tyler returned, some other guys from Miami would too. At pick number 49 for the Houston Texans, corner was the way I really wanted to go. Quinion Mitchell could be somebody who ends up being a very solid selection at this point. I'm waiting on more All-22 tape. Again, Amarius Mims is returning to school. I could be in the mood for some Troy Fautanu here, but I talked about this earlier, and Johnny Wilson provides something special to this team that they really do lack, and that's going to be essentially a freak on the outside. Johnny Wilson has his drop issues, but I do think you can be more reliable with your other targets. When you need a YOLO ball, I don't think there's someone who's better than Johnny Wilson. Maybe Keon Coleman, but essentially at this range, you're not going to get someone remotely as good as Johnny Wilson. He could also, worst case scenario, transfer to a tight end and become essentially what you already have there in Dalton Schultz. So I love that versatility. Obviously, he is my number 12 player in the class. So, there you go. Part of me just I thought that I didn't take somebody out of blue chip, but we'll see about that. A big number 50 for the New Orleans Saints. So we ended up drafting a quarterback in round number 1 with Michael Penix Jr., kind of ushering back the Drew Brees days with the pocket passer who actually knows how to hit wide receivers. This selection, I think the best option actually might be Troy Fautanu. You can end up kicking him to guard over Andreas Pete because that guy's butt cheeks, and then have pretty much Troy Fautanu be the eventual heir at tackle, so you can get instant reps there. If you don't want to do that, obviously defensive line is going to be the way I'd want to go. I don't see someone apart from Landon Jackson who would be up your alley, so to speak, but I could also trade with a team that might be looking for a Troy Fautanu. And I'm looking at the New York Giants. This is striking range for the New York Giants. I could see the Steelers being at least open to Troy Fautanu. The Cowboys, they could be. There are some teams that I would think fit the bill properly for Troy Fautanu. And, he's such a talented interior offensive lineman that I think the value is worth taking the swing on. I think it is. So New Orleans, protect your quarterback, whether that's Michael Penix or not. Also, you get someone who's already played with Michael Penix. It doesn't look like Trevor Penning is going to work out. I was not a fan of Trevor Penning at all, but I don't like counting my wins on players I don't like because naturally I hope these players succeed. They're human beings at the end of the day. I know you guys paycheck in order to suck, but at the end of the day, it kind of sucks to see somebody who has a lot of potential not work out because good football is always more fun than being right. Unfortunately, it does look like that's the case. Troy Fautanu could be the future at left tackle, especially for the fact that we have his quarterback there. At pick number 51 for the Atlanta Falcons, we have already addressed the edge rusher issue with Laiatu Latu. With this selection, I think that the right move would be looking back at quarterback. Again, I'm having pretty much all of these quarterbacks right here, these top 4 return. I don't think Spencer Rattler is remotely worth it. I would never draft him. Not for the talent, but for the personality. Joe Milton's just not worth it. Unfortunately, this class is absolutely decimated. So for this reason, I think I'm going to trade back. You got A.D. Mitchell here on the board. And I think, again, I've been trying to move up with some teams here. I think that a team like the New York Giants should be looking to be able to acquire a wide receiver 1 like A.D. Mitchell. The value is excellent. And honestly, there's not that many other receivers, maybe except Jermaine Burton. But A.D. Mitchell is a different body build entirely. So we are going to make a minute move up here with the New York Football Giants. This obviously doesn't require very much to move up 3 spots at this point. I think it would require a 4th round selection. And this is even saying that's quite rich. So I'm being very generous at this point. We could require a future 7th round pick. Whoop-de-doo. So do your own negotiating. It's not going to affect this mock draft, but we move up and select A.D. Mitchell to be a true boundary X. All right, continuing on with the Indianapolis Colts, we got a future star defensive back to pair up with Jalen Jones and Julius Brents in Kamari Lassiter in round number 1. So for round number 2, I do believe that wide receiver should be at least considered here. I think potentially a future at right tackle specifically, because I'm not the biggest believer in the world, and Braden Smith could be an option, but I feel like this team's actually relatively solid all around. I do think linebackers should be at least in the mix. Interior offensive line, I don't think it's been that bad. Again, this team is in the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. It's a good team. So the question is, do you want to grab someone who could be a strong boundary? I think Jalen Polk will return. However, in this mock draft, because I'm not doing a 2025 and because his quarterback is leaving, I will assume that he will come out. But again, just want to put that little caveat in there. I think Jalen Polk might be a really good guy to bring in for competition with Alec Pierce. 6 foot, I think he's 6'4" or is he 6'2"? He's 6'2", 204 pounds. Knew those numbers were scrambled in there somewhere. That's going to be primarily the guy who I want to target, but a defensive interior, talked about it earlier and brought up the fact that, you should be getting some extra help for the future. I know that Ruka doesn't exactly fit the size profile that you might be looking for. However, his talent is certainly unquestioned. This guy will be a day 1 run stuffer and pass rusher. I love the fact he can play all 4 downs right away. Elite athlete, 295, can put on more weight. That dude's just pure muscle at 295. So genuinely one of the more unique, intriguing prospects. I think that is worth giving to DeForest Buckner and to pretty much mentor and mold into the player he wants to be. And imagine the athleticism between him and Adetomiwa Adebawore. Scary for sure. At pick number 53, we got the Minnesota Vikings, who ended up selecting J.J. McCarthy. They reached for him in the first round, but ultimately, you got to get a quarterback. From the Pastronaut to just a straight ass with 2 S's, Tronaut, Josh Dobbs has become. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. At this selection, I think getting an athletic edge rusher would be the primary move, with 2 edge rushers up for a contract in Davenport, as well as I'm forgetting. Why am I forgetting Daniil Hunter's name? But with both of them up for a contract, you're going to need to replace them. So you got Jonah Ellis and Princely Umanmielen here, who both fit a very similar profile. I love Jonah Ellis with all my heart. I deep down feel he will return as well, but there is a good chance he might come out because of the fact that he is probably considered a round 2 selection. And he's a feisty ass dude. He reminds me a lot of Xavier Thomas, who I actually have just barely above him there at 26. They have very similar movement skills, both extremely high motor guys, I'm going to rock with Jonah Ellis here because he brings the heat. He's a really good athlete for 246. He plays like he's 280 damn near, just with the amount of power and the edge bend that he has. Maybe not 280, but probably 260. Genuinely one of my favorite players in the class. At pick number 54 for the Atlanta Falcons, we ended up trading back. We drafted an edge rusher with Latu in the first round to essentially assist our edge crew. Obviously, now I kind of wish that we didn't go that way. I think cornerback with Quinyon Mitchell could be someone you could mold into a true corner number 2. In the long run, might save you some cap instead of having to pay guys consistently. Landon Jackson could be another, if you want to just go balls to the wall and bring in multiple edge rushers. It's a team that I genuinely believe in a lot. That's why I had y'all making the playoffs in my final rankings and such. Like, quarterback is the position you should probably target, and I think Kirk Cousins in the offseason would be an excellent addition. But I do think potentially getting someone with 12 pass breakups and needs time to develop is the right move. We're going to go Quinyon Mitchell here out of Toledo. At pick number 55 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we got Kalen King round 1. I got some people who are mad at me always taking Kalen King, but I do not care. As a Steelers fan, I'm going to fulfill my legacy and get Joey Porter Jr. back with his number 2, his little, his Robin, so to speak, to his Batman. But now we got Jackson Powers-Johnson here. It's a very smart move. However, I do want to also look at the linebackers because we do need linebackers. We could target Peyton Wilson in the 3rd round. I think that'd be a very smart move. Although, because I love him so much, I doubt he will be there. Curtis Jacobs is a beast too. Looking at my linebacker rankings, I don't know why the hell it does that, but looking at my linebacker rankings, essentially, we have Peyton Wilson, Danny Stutzman, and Curtis Jacobs just all tied up right into this range. So, you got Junior Colson to start out, but you got Danny Stutzman next. I don't know if Danny Stutzman does come out, but I do think he'd be a really, really good Pittsburgh Steeler. He's 240 pounds. He's very versatile. He's very athletic. Still learning the position, but we're not going to downgrade at linebacker if we go Danny Stutzman. So I'm going to grab that. I know people want Jackson Powers-Johnson. There are centers that are worth taking in the 3rd. Do not worry. I think the linebacker quality now, in comparison to what will be there, is going to be better than the center quality there. I picked number 56 for the Browns. Wide receivers where I love to go with this team. I think it's probably the route I will continue to go. I do know that safety with Kalen Bullock is incredible value here. However, when you got someone like Jalen Polk to replace what you lost in Donovan Peoples-Jones, it's very hard to say no. At pick number 57 with the Miami Dolphins, we ended up going after Braylon Trice in the 1st round. Very nice with all the injuries that have been coming to, Jalen Phillips. I think Karan Ahmedjadjeh is going to be the correct move. He will be ready by the season, but needs some coaching up. This guy's a hyper-athletic offensive tackle. I love him to death. This is a good range for him to go, especially. I probably would have potentially taken him there for the Cowboys. But speaking of the Cowboys, we have him here at 58. 99% sure I went Chop Robinson for him in the 1st, and I did. So with this selection, I heard this request last week, but Patrick Paul to be the future at left tackle, he is a little bit athletically limited. However, I am going to actually accept your proposal because Houston, I don't know if they moved out of the AC yet, but you went after. I think he would be a solid addition. I don't believe he's worth this pick, but in reality, I think he'll go in this range. And Houston, they obviously come around here quite a bit. They play quite a bit, so it is close to where the scouts have probably had a lot of time studying him. And the fact is, this guy is an extremely high efficiency rate, so I do believe he could be going in this range. Again, center might have been the more valuable position in terms of just the pure talent at this spot, but you can't say no to actually getting a potential starter at left tackle in the 2nd round. At pick number 59 for the Lions, we ended up moving up with them, if I'm not mistaken, to select Nate Wiggins. And with this selection, I do believe they could look at defensive interior. They could look at edge rusher as well. And given the fact that Princely Umanmielen is still here, I think pairing him up with Aiden Hutchinson is going to be ridiculous. The amount of impact they have on the line of scrimmage is just going to be, it's going to be a total slaughterhouse. So Princely Umanmielen, one of my favorite picks in the draft. At pick number 60 for the Jaguars, Double checking. We normally go wide receiver from in the first. Yeah, y'all ended up getting a top 10 player consequentially with Perry and Arnold. Damn. At this point, I think going after a true wide receiver one build is proper. To me, that's down to Jermaine Burton and Brian Thomas. I'm going to take a shot on Brian Thomas and keep him in the South. 6'4", 200. Is this guy 204 pounds? 205 pounds. So 6'2", 204 for Jaylen. 6'4", 205 for Brian. He needs a little bit more development, but he has essentially the size that Troy Franklin doesn't have, and he's about a year behind. Broshma and I are both pretty lockstep with that. The Chiefs, man, they moved up for Emeka Egbuka. Could get Xavier Worthy here and just say, screw it, we're going to go balls to the wall. But I do really like the idea of going after defensive interior. Brandon Dorlus or Mekhi Wingo, it's pretty much up to you. I'm going to go after Brandon Dorlus because I think he has a little bit more talent. And you guys like to move your defensive interiors around quite a bit. And Brandon Dorlus is right up that alley with that versatility. At pick number 62 for the San Francisco 49ers, we ended up going Graham Barton in round number 1. With this selection, I'm having a hard time not having a team move up for Kalen Bullock or Jackson Powers Johnson. Amarius Mims again returning. Obviously, this guy would have went way, way earlier, but y'all know that by this point. If you're seeing this video and think I haven't taken Amarius Mims, I would respect if you got mad if you didn't understand that I was not taking him. I'll put it that way. Cornerback-wise, there's just nothing here that I'm super excited about. I don't know if Jason Marshall comes out. So I'm going to have a team trade up with the Niners because naturally that's what the Niners do. They end up getting more and more picks until they just kick ass. That's what they do. For the Giants, I could be in the mood to potentially go Kalen Bullock here. I don't really see too many teams actually in striking range who would like Kalen Bullock. That's interesting. I can see the Eagles being a good team for him, but I doubt that they get rid of Byard. They have Sidney Brown playing 25 reps a game at this point. I totally don't see it being a possibility. But teams that need center, I mean, you're not going to do an in-division trade, but the Chicago Bears could be right up that alley. Looking at what the Bears have already gotten at this draft, they got Joe Alt and Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I mean, they kind of need an edge rusher as well. Looking at the edge class, Landon Jackson is not the type of guy who I'd go after. To be fair, this team's actually kicking ass. The Bears, they're actually kicking ass. They were getting a ton of pressure. So I'm actually going to move up with the Bears, with the Niners. And for this, I think the Niners will value future draft capital. You don't need too much more. So I'm going to ask for a 4th-round pick to move up this bunch. Again, if you want to do your own negotiating, feel free to do so. It's not going to affect this mock draft regardless. So the Bears have moved up and are going to select Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. High upside, high octane athlete. Very young, very raw, but he's shown quite a bit. The Ravens ended up moving back into this round, ended up selecting Denzel Burke. I think Landon Jackson at that 270, 6'7" frame is going to be very, very intriguing. So I'm going to allow him to potentially be a very versatile edge rusher for them that can kick inside. He's still learning the nuances of the game, but this is a team that I do believe has a little bit more patience in terms of allowing him to sit and develop. At pick number 64 for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think it's time to get rid of Quez. Let's get Xavier Worthy on this team. You're probably going to be looking for like a true burner, and this saves you money. Xavier Worthy's a great talent, so I think it all lines up, and I also want to choose some different players for some different teams. At pick number 65 for the Carolina Panthers, we went Jordan Morgan in round number 1. Xavier Worthy would have been really nice here, but that's not the case. Looking at other weapons here, I think pairing him back up with Jermaine Burton sounds great to me. I mean, you're pairing him back up with a weapon he has chemistry with, and Jermaine Burton is a top 32 player on my board. Sounds like it's a pretty good deal to me. At pick number 66, I would honestly debate going Kalen Bullock here. The value is just too damn good. He's a former first round or top 32 player for me. We've already gotten 2 defensive interiors. Wide receiver is a potential way that we can go. I'm not seeing anybody who I'd feel over the moon about. Like, just naturally, even looking at my board, I would not go after a Jacob Cowing for this team specifically, and I don't have any other bigger wide receivers that are worth it at this selection. Juice Wells has returned to school. That's official. The rest of these are not official, but that one is official. I could look at linebacker for sure. I mean, looking at the linebackers available, I think that'd be pretty damn smart. And I'm going to actually go after Curtis Jacobs. This whole entire Penn State linebacking core is ridiculous. Obviously, y'all went in the 7th round for a linebacker from Penn State a while ago, but Curtis is very good at man-to-man coverage. He's a good athlete. Genuinely one of the more balanced linebackers in the class. He's a top 64 player for me at number 55, which is just below where y'all can see. So right here at number 55. Well deserving of this selection. I need to kick out Dante Corleone, though. He is not coming out in this draft. At pick number 67, so New England. Pretty sure we got Xavier Legette in the last round. Yeah, we got Xavier Legette and Drake Maye. At this point, looking at offensive tackles, I'm going to go Javon Foster. It's worth taking the upside. He has some aspects of Trent Williams to him in terms of just the pure athleticism and dominance in the run game. He's still working as a pass blocker, but this is a team that should have some patience and definitely can profit off of waiting with Javon. At pick number 68 for San Francisco, for me, this would be probably good range to develop a tackle like Blake Fisher that needs a little bit more time to develop and become a true starting right tackle. But I do see the potential with him. There's a lot to like about Blake Fisher. There's a lot that you need to adjust, but I think we go back to Notre Dame and select the future right tackle because this team needs one. And I feel like if you get one free agent for a year, Blake Fisher can learn properly, and then he can come out the gate. You got Graham Barton on the inside of him, Blake Fisher. Like, that's going to be a nasty right side of the line of scrimmage. At pick number 69 for the Commanders, I believe we have taken Tyler Guyton, right? We took Tyler Guyton, JT Tuimalau, as well as Olu Fashanu. That's a pretty nasty bunch right there. Now, I still think you could go after an edge rusher here, and there is one that I do have worth this pick, and I just wish they would have him listed here. But he's a top 32 player for me. I don't really think there's many more positions to legitimately target except linebacker. And then also my number 26 player, Xavier Thomas. I feel like Xavier could be a big get on this team, but at the same time, you might want to see if KJ Henry can have a go at it. I'm going to look in the linebacking room, and I'm actually going to target Edgerrin Cooper here. He's been super well balanced overall. He's over a 90 PFF grade on the year, and he does pop off. I would love a little bit more consistency from him, but like in terms of being an eye-catching type of player, but he is a very talented player, and he did pass the eye test, so that's a good sign. At pick number 70 for the New York Football Giants. Having a hard time saying no to Kalen Bullock at this point. I could try to move up with another team that could use a guy like Kalen Bullock. There's just not many teams that need a safety anymore based on the teams that have already selected him. New York, I mean, I might just take him because of BPA. And I'm trying to remember the safeties that you have longer term in your core. You don't even have Julian Love anymore. Wink Martindale will have a field day with Kalen Bullock. Let's just take him. I know that we could have went offensive line there. Maybe that's what I should have done. But for the time being, we're going to be pretty happy with that. At pick number 71 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we're going to be trading out of this spot because I have a top 15 player who's still on the board and needs to come off the board. And I'm seeing what team I'm going to bless with said offensive lineman. It might be the Steelers, but no. I'm trying to find a team that needs a right guard. That could be right here with the Detroit Lions. We could make a massive move up with Detroit, even though I don't really know if Detroit wants to spend that type of draft capital because they don't have any compensatories. But another team that could, the Jaguars, I could totally see them going after it because they have 2 third-round picks. This could be a great opportunity to leverage a third and a fourth for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that's what I'll do. Like, again, I think this guy needs to come off the board. We could go up with the Colts and select him. I mean, hell, we could go up with the Giants, but we've already just sacrificed so much draft capital for y'all. It's unfortunate, but with Detroit, we are going to be moving up an extensive bit here. It will most likely require the number 112 pick as well. So you guys are actually adding a lot extra draft capital for a pretty weak back end on this. So we're going to be able to move up with Jacksonville to select an elite interior offensive lineman in Christian Haynes. It's a guy who I'd be willing to take in the first round. Kind of just slips because Connecticut offensive linemen don't usually go very high. At pick number 72 for the Jets, we ended up going after an offensive tackle, I believe, in the first round in Amarius Mims. And not Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham. Amarius Mims did not come out in this. So J.C. Latham was the selection in round number 1. With this, we are going to go after a wide receiver because I do think we need to try to do something. And oh man, the wide receiver class for round 3 is just not good. Like Lad McConkey's not the guy who I would bring in. Malachi Corley isn't either. Brendan Rice is way too early in my opinion. Like, genuinely speaking, I am going to look at quarterback here. And I'm going to go after the guy with the most potential, and that's Joe Milton to be the true backup of the future here. At pick number 73 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We already moved back once. We're not going to move back here. We have already drafted. Did we draft Troy Franklin? For the lore, we did. Troy Franklin as well as Bo Nix. This selection, I am going to opt for a linebacker of the future. And I'm going to go Barrett Carter. You pretty much have like a ticking time bomb in terms of all the veterans on this team. Barrett Carter is just such good value for the athlete that he is. 5 missed tackles he had this past week is not great, but overall, this guy still is a missile to the ball and well deserving of a selection here. For the Cardinals, I'm going to get a running back of the future. You got Bucky Irving here. I want a 3-down back. You need a future at running back, and Bucky Irving is just so reliable. And, that's just, it takes stress off your plate. So that's where we're going to go. At pick number 75 for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team that also needs a running back. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be back. So we're going to get one of the most dynamic athletes in the draft in Marshawn Lloyd. At pick number 76, we have the Seattle Seahawks. And we have so many picks with the Seahawks that I'm actually going to, I want to trade out of this spot. Who is worth trading up for? Because remember, to trade back, you have to have a team wanting to trade up. You have some elite linebackers that are still available, even though, I love Jeremiah. I love Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s value at this point. Speaking of a team that could use them, this is one of them. Let's go Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who's actually confirmed to come out in this class. At pick number 77 for Green Bay. We've already gone defensive interior. We've already gone safety. We've also gone running back. I talked about getting lightning and thunder. That is exactly what we're going to do here. We are going to get Braylon Allen, the other player who is declared for the NFL draft. At pick number 78 for the Los Angeles Rams, we have already drafted a DB as well as Chris Braswell. So we got Cooper DeJean and Chris Braswell. 2 really good pieces to build the rest of the defense around. I'm looking at Makai Wingo here. I think that would be a good option, but I might just deal with the injuries and go after Peyton Wilson. I think it's worth it at this point to draft somebody who is a top 20 talent that just can't stay healthy. At pick 79 for the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe we've already gone to Tavian Sanders as well as Keon Coleman. At this point, Jesus, the tackles are just not good. It's kind of my fault. I am the one who took said tackles. But, deep down inside, we could go Cooper Beebe for this team because that value is ridiculously good. Defense interior-wise, Dante's declared to return. We're going to actually go Makai Wingo here. McKinley Jackson's a great choice. Same thing with Byron Murphy. Both these guys could be great additions. Mason Smith, too. Makai Wingo's just been a little bit more explosive. I think he might add a little bit more as a pass rusher. Pick number 80. I think I need to trade out of this spot. I got Lightning, Thunder. I just don't really see much more that will add to this team. You could go Brandon Rice because he does have some pretty good hands, but developmental tackle wise, you could try to look for somebody. Man, it is some slim pickings, ain't it? It is some slim pickings here. You could try to draft a quarterback I don't think Jalen Milroe's coming out, but you could try to draft someone like that. Cam Ward's probably not coming out either. I don't even know who the next quarterback that would be coming out would be because, again, I have all these dudes returning. I highly doubt that they'll come out because we already got 2 running backs. This team doesn't need anything. They don't. You know what? This is something they can do. We are trading with the New York Football Giants because we are going to end up selecting a superstar potential left tackle who has just not been doing a great job in Evan Neal. So we're going to be sending pick number 80 for Evan Neal. That's how we're going to do this. There we go. Some may say that is an overtrade. I highly doubt it. If he ends up moving to left tackle, I am almost sure that he's going to end up being one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Dude just can't transition to right. It is what it is. But with New York, we have an elite tier safety. We have a high-level wide receiver, I believe we moved up for. An A.D. Mitchell, as well as Caleb Williams. So we're starting to kick some ass. And with this selection, I might have lost an offensive lineman, but I'm going to gain one back. We're going to go Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. The value is just too good. You get a cheap contract. You just don't have to worry about Evan Neal's development anymore. Just bring on a veteran for a year and see what happens. Pick number 81 for the Arizona Cardinals. I do believe that we have drafted a billion things for y'all. We got running back, we got edge, defensive interior, corner, linebacker. We've gotten everything. Now, what's the best value at this point? I think offensive line. And looking at the guys available, you got Cedric Van Pran, Drake Nugent, and Zach Frazier. So, that's going to be the centers that are available. I actually really like the idea of pairing up Donovan Jackson back with Paris Johnson. I think that's the right move. Let's go with Donovan Jackson here. At pick number 82, I'm going to move back with the Broncos. I don't really see value that's necessarily that great. Pretty sure I opted for a wide receiver in Rome Odunze in round number 1, and I did. So without a second round pick, I do want to get a little bit more draft capital because I see a player I really like on the board for the Steelers at this spot. The Steelers just drafted a linebacker in Danny Stutzman. And to move up 5 spots, I highly doubt it's going to take the 114th pick. Maybe we trade a future 5th rounder and, God only knows. We toss in Levi Wallace, please. Let's get Levi Wallace off the team. Oh, this is going to make me feel so excited. Again, you could throw something else in for your own pleasure. You could toss in a 2026 pick instead of Levi Wallace, but for the memes, I'm getting Levi Wallace off my team. Honestly, he might be better as a Bronco too. So you guys actually might profit from that. But we are going to be opting for Cedric Van Pran. There we go. Steelers masterclass. Elite tier linebacker, elite tier center, and an elite tier defensive back. It feels like the Steelers are right at home. Obviously, instant chemistry there with Broderick Jones. At pick number 83 for the Atlanta Falcons. Again, based on the quarterbacks that I have returning, we pretty much have Spencer Rattler, who I think Spencer Rattler might have declared, but I'm not going to take Spencer Rattler for this team. Again, the talent is worth it, but he's not a leader. He's not a leader at all. So I think we got Quinyon Mitchell for y'all last round. That's a super high upside pick. With this selection, this team is really well built. I might want to get a safety to develop behind, this is honestly kind of pointless because you also have Clark Phillips there. Because I want to go Javon Bullard here. I'm just going to trade out of the spot. I don't feel like there's a good value here. And Javon Bullard, he's some damn good value. So what teams could use Javon Bullard? I do think the Seahawks wouldn't be a bad location for Javon. I could see the Cowboys being open to Javon Bullard. If you want to get some extra DB help, the Texans are kind of looking for that. Slot corner, Javon Bullard, potential safety upgrade as well, and an Eagle, but y'all don't have day 3 picks. That's the unfortunate thing. So not going to do it with that. Honestly speaking, the Bills. The Bills would be a good spot to target. So we're going to move up with the Buffalo Bills. It's a long-range trade, but I just don't see the value there for the Falcons. And, we already have a lot of picks here. I think this might end up taking a future 3rd, but we'll toss in a future 4th instead. You can do your own negotiating. So the Atlanta Falcons have moved back. The Buffalo Bills have moved up. They already drafted a safety. Absolutely. I know that. Who do we draft with them? Where are the Bills at? You got a Cam Kinchins. But Javon Bullard plays an entirely different game. And he can complement him very, very well. Javon Bullard is an elite level athlete who just brings way too much to the table. I don't see many other players being an addition to the Buffalo Bills roster right away. Javon Bullard would. At pick number 84 for the Indianapolis Colts, what was our last pick for y'all? Because that was the one where I actually started getting stumped, or did I trade this one? I didn't trade this one. Why do I remember doing a pick very recently? Oh, I got Rook, right. I could just go back to the defensive interior route and then end up getting the bigger target for a future nose. But I actually might go back to the defensive back room because there still are some really good players in here, like James Williams, who could be a massive addition. I might add in a linebacker at this point. Looking at the ones who are available, you could use Tyron Hopper as an elite level blitzer. But Tommy Eichenberg's just a solid guy. Even if he doesn't start, this is someone who could still be a very valued addition into the rotation. So we're going to go after Tommy Eichenberg. With Shaq off the roster, yes, he was not the best player on planet Earth, but there's still a vacancy at linebacker that can be filled. Even if it's a backup role, there's still a vacancy that can be filled. And Tommy is a very, very consistent linebacker. I thought he was going to be a blue chip player for me, but he didn't end up living up to that hype this year. Then we got 2 picks for the Seahawks. Pretty sure I've already traded. Did I already trade out of one of these picks with them? Oh, I got Jeremiah Trotter. That makes sense. So I'm actually going to look at the edge rushing group, and I'm going to opt for my number 26 player in Xavier Thomas. We'll use Darius Robinson as a placeholder, but because they also don't have another one of my top 32 players there. So Xavier Thomas out of Clemson, 260. I think he's probably down to 255 now, but just super freaky athlete. Was supposed to be a first-round pick, just hasn't. Well, to me, he's still worth it, but to many, he has not lived up to the potential. Number 86, I'm gonna get a future for what we have in Tyler Lockett. We're gonna go Ladd McConkey as some good depth there. I picked number 87 for the Broncos. We traded back, got some extra draft capital, and now could look at some future tackle depth, but no, again, Amari Smith's not coming out in this. Quarterback-wise, don't see the value necessarily. And we've already taken a wide receiver. The defensive backs, honestly, Kalen Carson could be a really good player. He got eaten alive by, the number 15 pick or number 16 pick in this draft. So it's understandable. You could look at an interior offensive line over Lloyd Cushenberry. Edge rusher again. I mean, looking at the ones that are available, I'm starting to get very comfortable with the idea of a Jasheen Davis at this point. He's a very talented edge rusher. He had 8 pressures versus Florida State. Steve Linton's a fun one as well. Jack Sawyer. I mean, that's just really good run stuffing right out the gate. But I'm actually going to go after Kalen Carson. I want a versatile defensive back. Yes, I gave you Levi Wallace. That was kind of a joke, but Levi Wallace also not necessarily the biggest addition in the world. I'd still go after Kalen Carson. I picked number 88 for the Browns. We drafted a defensive interior for y'all earlier. We got Jalen Polk. I thought we got defensive interior. Now I'm going to go after a defensive interior, and I'm actually going to go after Mason Smith out of LSU. He needs a lot of development, hasn't fully stepped up, but he's still well worth the selection. I picked number 89 for the Dallas Cowboys. I actually am going to opt for a center here. It's between Drake Nugent and Zach Frazier. Both of them are very talented players. I really like Drake Nugent. I think he's taken a big step up this year. Zach Frazier has had some pretty poor games here and there. Therefore, I'm going to complete the offensive line with Drake Nugent. At pick number 90 for the Detroit Lions, we've gone corner. Did we go defense interior for y'all yet? Slip in my mind. We went edge rusher. We have not gone defensive interior. Therefore, I'm actually going to go defensive interior now with Byron Murphy II. I doubt that he actually comes out because he just genuinely feels like someone who could be a first rounder. But in this, you get to rejoice and celebrate. At pick number 91, we've gotten receiver, we've gotten linebacker, we've gotten quarterback for the Buccaneers. Now is a good time potentially to get a corner. You could go back to Auburn. It's a lot of success that we've had there. But at the same time, I do think that maybe getting the bigger bodied receivers, this is where you can start trying to take them. Maybe like a running back seems to be the best value at this point. Luke Lackey, I'm quite surprised he's listed that high. McKinley Jackson, if you want to get a bigger defensive interior, it doesn't seem to make sense, but actually a team should move up for McKinley. A team needs to move up for McKinley. He's well deserving of it. I'm actually going to probably move up with the Texans. Have I drafted defense interior for y'all yet? I doubt it. I think I got edge rusher for y'all with Dallas Turner. That's perfect. Here we go. Houston Texans, we are making a move up here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have already moved back. But again, we might as well just continue flooding them with picks. I think pick 154 is a proper value to make a small move up. That's a late 5th, early 6th round pick, probably a 5th round pick. But we are going to end up going after McKinley Jackson out of Texas A&M here. 325 pounds, extremely good athlete. I still have some other really good players, but not many of them are 325 pounds like McKinley. At pick number 92 for the Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to opt for interior offensive line at this point. It's a good time to just start drafting some depth. Hurts my heart to see Zach Frazier, absolutely get his leg bent out the wazoo. But, it is what it is. We are going to go after probably Zach Frazier here and potentially use him as a guard. I did take away most of the interior offensive linemen I really like. Zach Frazier has that center versatility, so I'm going to let him sit and develop for a year. He can end up playing guard as well. At pick 93 for the San Francisco 49ers, we've already gotten a defensive back as well as an offensive lineman. So, actually, just kidding. We got 2 offensive linemen. We haven't even gotten a defensive back. This is a great opportunity to test out DJ James can survive the NFL at his lightweight. He had over 100 yards allowed very recently, but he also had, I think, 2 pass breakups at the same time. He's a very high-level corner. If you end up training him properly and getting some meat on his bones, he could end up being a very valued addition. At pick number 94 for the Baltimore Ravens, I do feel like this is the team to try to draft another wide receiver for Lamar. Tez Walker is someone who I think could be in the mix, but I'm actually going to trade out of this pick because I think that exact player needs to go to the team that has Drake Maye. So we are going to be moving up with the New England Patriots here. And I don't think the Ravens are going to care too much about this year's draft capital. It might take a future 5, might take a future 4. But again, do your own negotiating. It's not going to affect this mock draft. The New England Patriots have moved up to select Devontae Walker to pair up with Xavier Legette and Drake Maye. At pick number 95 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can't move back again. I mean, we can, but, that'd be kind of weird. We're probably going to actually look, the best value right now to go BPA is probably going to be one of these safety / corner slot corner hybrids. And I'm going to go Billy Bowman Jr. here to be that very versatile player. He's back-to-back weeks going to be on the stock report. And, that's a great way to end off the year. At pick number 96 for the Jaguars, we ended up moving up for Christian Haynes. So we've already gone defensive back, guard, and then we also went wide receiver. Those are kind of the big positions I wanted to hit on. From now on, most of these picks are kind of, you could do what you want with them. I actually might opt for an edge rusher here and might go with Jack Sawyer because that's just going to be an instant help in the run game. It's proper value as well and someone who can be developed. At pick number 97 for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jack Sawyer actually would have been a really solid get for them to develop. I do think running back could be on the market. We already have drafted Xavier Worthy. We already drafted Junior Colson as well. What do we get with our last pick? Oh, we got Kingsley Suamataia. So at this point, you could look at some extra depth, but with 7 corners on the roster, I do start to agree with my resident Eagles fan, Marina. I think that we could just try to opt for, safety depth at this point. We've already gotten offensive line depth, running back value. Looking at it, not necessarily great. Like, you got Blake Corum here, who could be a good addition, but I wouldn't be too crazy about it personally. Like, Blake Corum could be a good Eagle, but it feels a little bit early. So, in the spirit of Howie, I think a trade back, luckily we've actually gotten a shit ton of picks. That's a big plus. But who should be moved up for? I think Blake Corum on another roster, because I don't feel like the Eagles would pull the trigger on one. On another roster, he would do just fine. And that's probably where I want to end up. And Howie is a mastermind of these trades. So what teams could want a running back? Carolina Panthers wouldn't be an area or a team that I would shy away from. The Commanders, I feel like that role's already selected. The Chargers, though. The Chargers could be looking. And this is a shorter range trade for the Eagles. And I think this is a good opportunity to start building that 4th round pick that we traded away for, I think, Kevin Byard. So that is going to be the move up. The Los Angeles Chargers are going to end up actually getting someone who I think fits their offense very, very well in Blake Corum. At pick number 98 for the San Francisco 49ers, We've drafted 2 offensive linemen for them. Very well might draft a third, but other positions, kicker, punter, seems to be up your alley. But edge rusher wise, you know, I actually could see Gabriel Murphy being drafted here as a depth edge rusher. It just depends. You could use a smaller linebacker like Tyron Hopper to be one of those guys in the rotation for a blitzing / coverage guy. And you know what? I love it. I want to hear my Niners fans' thoughts on that. He is a fun player to watch. At pick number 99 for the Falcons, and closing in on the end of this, I actually might draft Spencer because he does fit this offense very, very well. It's a thin quarterback class, so we're going to go after Spencer Rattler. At pick number 100 for the Baltimore Ravens, we are ending off the draft, hopefully on a high note. We do have some running backs here that could be, like, I really like Ray Davis. Jace McClellan's a very solid back, going to be a good value get. You know, could opt for another defensive back here as well, though. Like, looking at someone like Andrew Makuba, Chris Abrams-Drain. Actually, let's end off the draft with a bang. Let's get a trade in here. And let's get a team to move up for Chris Abrams-Drain, because I love me some Chris Abrams-Drain. Looking for a team that could use a safety. The Tennessee Titans. Did I draft one for y'all in the second round? I feel like I might not have. Hello. We're moving up with the Tennessee Titans. He's a slot corner that's played boundary as well, so you also will be getting some pretty good value there. And I think it will take similar value to the Eagles move up with a future fifth. So the Titans have moved up, and they end off the draft with a bang with going Chris Abrams-Drain. So that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for all the support and love that you show the show. Thank you for everything, and continue to come hanging out with me every single week for another mock draft.